You're listening to 9 Plus, a research podcast from SETU Ireland. Welcome to 9 Plus, a podcast in which we chat to some of the researchers at the South East Technological University of Ireland, SETU. My name is Rob O'Connor and I'm a podcast academic of sorts, but my background is computer science and also music. That's my roundabout way of saying that 9 Plus is a transdisciplinary publication. Today I'm speaking with Thomae Kakouli-Duarte, an environmental scientist who specialises in agri-environment science and soil ecology. Thomae has a special interest in nematodes, a microscopic life form and one of the most abundant creatures on the planet. But Thomae's interests are quite wide-ranging, as you'll hear during the conversation. She's originally from Greece but has lived in Ireland for a number of years, and it's very interesting to hear how her professional journey has taken her to this point. I think Thomae may be the first person to invoke ancient Greek philosophers on the podcast too. Anyway, it demonstrates the roots of her education and grounding in scientific thought. If you like what you hear, there are some links in the podcast description for places to discover more about Thomae's work, and you can always follow 9 Plus Podcast on Twitter to keep up to date on developments with the podcast. Now, we begin with Thomae introducing herself.
My name is Thomae Kakouli-Duarte, and I am a lecturer in SETU in the Department of Applied Science and a director of the Environmental Science Research Center we have here on our Carlow campus called enviroCORE.
So you largely work in the area of agri-environmental sciences. Is that kind of correct in a broad capacity?
Yes, in agroecology and particularly bioenvironmental. For example, I'm not involved, let's say, with atmospheric environmental work, just to give the distinction and be precise.
And you do a lot of work on soil?
Indeed.
In soil. Okay, so let's say I know nothing about soil, which I don't, right? What are the kind of the major areas that you're concerned with in your work, in your research work?
I'm seriously concerned with soil health, as soil is a very valuable resource to humanity, providing a lot of ecosystem services, which are services that help to make our life better on the planet, just to describe what an ecosystem service is. For example, nitrogen cycling, suppression of diseases of plants and so forth. Soil, it's a non-renewable resource. That means it takes millennia and millions of years to make literally centimeters of topsoil, which is one of the most fertile parts of the soil. And due to mostly industrialized and intensified agriculture, globally soils have been depleted from their nutrients. They have been heavily polluted, maybe in urban areas or areas where there's a lot of pesticide usage in agriculture, for example. The biodiversity of soils has been depleted as well, and the biodiversity is part of the soil that provides those ecosystem services. And soil is not just dirt, as lots of people didn't know in the past. It's a very dynamic environment with a lot of living beings in it to provide, as I said, those services. So we have also various geological phenomena happening, like soil erosion. We're losing the topsoils. And as I said, because these soils cannot be repaired immediately or soon enough, that's why we have a problem in our hands, and we really need to mobilize globally to do something about it. So my work helps to do that up to a point in a certain way. So
when you said it takes millions of years to generate soil and topsoil, I'm ignorant about this, okay? So, and I hold my hand up about being ignorant about this. So it's not the case. So if I go and buy 2 tons of topsoil to throw in my garden, that has to come from somewhere. That's not somebody making it.
No,
that has been
collected. That has been extracted from an environment.
Okay.
And that would have its own footprint, that intervention to provide you the soil for your garden.
Yes. Okay. So that's probably not a good idea then, is it?
Depends where they take them from. There might be peat-rich soils that have reserves that can be used for a while without danger. But there might be they might take them from areas that they are under danger. So I have no idea, I suppose, at this stage where the garden soil comes from. You would like to believe that they're taken from areas that they're more sustainable and there's no issue.
Okay, but if I was to be kind of utilitarian about it or reductive about it, the soil is very important to all life on Earth.
Yes.
It can be made, but it takes a long time
Exactly.
to make it. It's not like we put it in the oven, come back 2 weeks later, it's done.
Or we can grow it like a plant, for example.
Yes, so it takes a long time.
Yes.
So we have to value the soil that we have.
Indeed.
And maybe be a bit more precious with it. Would that be fair enough?
Absolutely. And as well as the ecosystem services that I mentioned, drainage and carbon sequestration and nitrogen cycling, don't go far away. The food that we eat needs the soil.
Yeah.
If we don't have soil, we don't have food. And then if that comes into danger, our civilization, I know I'm using grand words here, but I'm carefully using those words, our civilization will collapse.
Yes, no, but I don't think that's too alarmist. I think that makes sense.
It's so precious. And that is reflected, I suppose, by the European Union trying to put together a strategy for soils. And I welcome in Ireland that the Department of Agriculture has really copped on, and they try also to keep up and creating expert groups and bring farmers in, all the users, all the stakeholders, just to show that there is support behind those initiatives now.
Okay, I hit you with a question here. This is a word that I did not know until recently enough. What are nematodes? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You pronounce that correctly. Actually, whoever has seen SpongeBob, I know now, whoever has seen SpongeBob might remember that in Bikini Bottom, there were those worm-like creatures that coming up from the bottom there, waving like little snakes. These were nematodes. Just to go back again, to be a bit more precise and less cartoony, nematodes are worm-like organisms. So they're not like earthworms, but they're like earthworms, but they're microscopic. Now, of course, the diversity of them on the planet is vast. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they can vary also in size. But as a rule of thumb, we should take it that nematodes are microscopic. That means we cannot see them with naked eye. Some of them are living free in the environment, but some of them are parasitizing things. Some of them can parasitize plants and cause vast crop losses. So here we have a problem with some of them. Some others parasitize insects, and I have a specialism in that. And they can be beneficial because we can use them as insecticides of insects. Therefore, we don't use chemicals to cause all the pollution problems in the soil and in the residues of the food and in the residues on the groundwaters and so forth. Yet some others parasitize our veterinary animals. So these are the bad nematodes. And the largest one I know is the parasites of whales, and they can reach up to meters in length. Wow. But again, we don't meet whales every day, obviously.
Yeah.
So you could really, if you took all the mass of our planet away and left only the nematodes on the Earth, you can barely make the shape of the planet by the film of the nematodes that would remain on the planet. They are the most numerous phylum on the planet in terms of number of species and also in terms of number of individuals.
Right.
So they're very populous. The thing is, and that's what I say, soil is, and they live in the soil, and whatever we don't see doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So they're everywhere, those nematodes, and they're one of the most underrated groups of organisms. The primary reason for that, I suppose, is because they're kind of difficult to work with. They're not as easy to grow as bacteria would be, for example. If you want to identify them, the older times, you nearly had to be an artist, to be a taxonomist, to draw them, to measure them under the microscopes. An art that is getting lost, unfortunately, in our days, because we have molecular means of identifying them based on DNA typing. So in my work, we do kind of a bit of both. And they are excellent also to tell you very valid information about the quality of your soil. And that's another area of my specialization. They are used as indicators of soil health or environmental change in the soil. Nematodes, because they are in the middle of the food web. The food web, if you can imagine, everybody kind of understands what the food chain is. The food web is like where many food chains crisscrossing each other. So you have many food chains coming from every direction and crossing. You can imagine like many lines crossing. Okay, so in the middle of all that, in the soil, you have nematodes. They are eating many other things around them, like bacteria, fungi, and other nematodes, but also they are eaten by other things. So if there is a disturbance in the nematode communities in the soil, that reflects disturbances in all the other groups of animals and microorganisms in the soil. So we use them as proxies. Without having to go to analyze all the other groups of biodiversity, we analyze the biodiversity of nematodes, and then we have ecological indices, we call them, formulas that colleagues, mathematicians in the past have developed, where we put our data into and we make a prediction as to how the soil is. So therefore you can go after a remediating action to see if it has worked. We can go after an environmental disaster to see what is the damage. As I said, they are the most valuable group of animals to do that. The other thing I like to add about nematodes is that they are the only phylum in the tree of life of the planet that has been analyzed at gene level, cellular level, organismal level, and community level. The first animal which was multicellular, whose genome was determined, sequenced, was the nematode Cynorhabditis elegans.
Say that again?
Cynorhabditis elegans, or C. elegans.
Okay.
C. elegans has about 60%, 70% similarity with genes that cause disease, with similarity with genes which are causing disease in humans. So disease genes in humans are similar in the DNA sequence with their homologs in C. elegans. Right. So instead of using human subjects or even more advanced animal models for humane reasons, I suppose, we can use the worm, C. elegans, to model processes and understand, for example, new treatments, understand biochemical processes, and with the aim to understand human disease and treat human disease, if not cure it completely. I was recently, last week, actually externing, that's why I couldn't meet earlier, yes. I was externing on a PhD in UCC, a project by Christina Killian and my good colleagues Susan Joyce and David Clark in UCC, whereby they looked at how the gut microbiome, all the microbes we have in our gut, talks to the nervous system, and they used as models Parkinson's disease, and they used autism. And they used, one chapter was with mice models, but the other two chapters were done on C. elegans, and it was tremendous to see how they can use this worm to see if microbiome interventions, if probiotic treatments could actually extend the lifespan of the worm and affect its nervous system and so forth. So we can learn so many things from nematodes. Sorry, now I get going because I'm so enthusiastic about nematology.
I think it's fascinating. Yes. So to go back to just the soil health just for a moment.
Yes,
so what
sorry,
you're saying, no, it's absolutely bang on.
C. elegans is a soil organism. It's extracted from saprophytic growth in the soil. Yes, it's a bacterial feeder. Yes.
So when you said you can measure for the diversity and the numbers of nematodes
and the types and the species and the trophic groups and all this, yes,
in the soil. So to be kind of reductive about it, you can actually come up with a figure or a value
exactly.
as to how healthy a soil is,
exactly,
based on the presence of these organisms.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So from a sheer informatics perspective, yes. It's useful. They're useful, as well as all those other benefits that you've talked about.
As I said, I work with them as bioinsecticides as well. I have a lovely project at the moment going with the Walton Institute. My colleague Daniel Martins is co-supervising. We're using telecommunication principles to model the interaction between nematodes and beneficial bacteria to improve plant health.
Yeah, okay.
So there.
Right, okay. Yeah, because I did chat to some of the lads from Walton before, and they were looking, measuring the quality of vegetation in a field or something via the wireless signals that were passing through. I don't know if that has anything to do with nematodes.
When he came to me and said, let's do a project with telecommunications and biology, I started with the mouth open and said, what? How could we use telecommunication and biology? But he did actually explain, and we have this project started now, and it's very exciting. The aim is to, as I said, apply the principles of modeling of telecommunication to improve the system of these two organisms interacting, the nematodes and the beneficial bacteria, the endophytes, to see how we can make a product for plant health. The nematode will protect the plant from insects, whereas the bacteria will protect the plant in terms of its immunity. They boost immunity and plant growth. Yeah.
So I'm going to assume from my kind of pig ignorant knowledge of science that there's a huge number of microorganisms that are out there, and just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not important.
Yes.
Now, I know that's a very simplistic statement to make, but if you're somebody who's maybe coming from a non-biological background, you might not be aware of these things.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
And I hope podcasts like this one will help to let people know about the significance of all these things. I mean, this is why science communication is all about, and we are doing science communication now.
I see from your CV here, it says you lecture in molecular genetics, applied immunology, microbiology.
That was in my past life before I took over EnviroCORE. But yes, I lecture in those for 15 years, and so I have a good grasp, yes.
Molecular biology, bioinformatics, cell biology, freshwater ecology. So there's a whole kind of range there of scientific disciplines and subdisciplines. You have, again, co-authored over 120 publications, not all peer-reviewed, but a whole load of articles,
journals, conferences, popular science, all this together amassed in about 120 years.
And you're involved in lots of conferences, examining PhDs, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're... I can say this and you can react in any way you want. So you're a very accomplished individual, okay? Okay. So I don't want to kind of make you... I don't want to embarrass you, but you are. So there you go.
Thank you.
But what I'd like to know is, how did you end up here? How did you end up in this position? So I can tell by your accent that even though you live in County Kildare, you're not from County Kildare originally. Yes. So where are you from originally, Thomae?
I am from a little town called Florina, which is on the Macedonian mountains of North Greece.
Okay.
And I did my first degree, which was on crop production, technology of crop production in my hometown. And while doing it, I realized that I like to learn more about crop protection. Since a very young child, because I grew up in a rural area, I was always investigating nature. It was just next to me. I was playing always with soil, in the rivers, in the forests, and all these kinds of things. So I had an affinity for nature because of my upbringing. And I remember I would go and lift stones, and I would see the insects underneath, and I would get fascinated watching invertebrates. If I was living in the Middle Ages, I would be burned as a witch, I say. But thank God that didn't happen. So
thank God.
Because you don't, I suppose kids are like that, but this interest remained with me. When people shy away from creepy corollas, I find them fascinating. I don't want them on my table, but I love to watch them. I find them very interesting creatures, so alien to us, but yet very interesting. And to me now, knowing all this that I know, I'm very grateful for their existence. So anyhow, so that's my interest about that. And then in my first degree, I liked a lot crop protection because all these creepy crawlers were involved in crop protection. That's why I like them. So I thought, I want to know more about that. So what do I do now? I thought I'll go in the UK to do a master's in the technology of crop protection, because at the time there was no such a post-grad MSc program in Greece. So I went to England at the University of Reading, where I did my master's in the technology of crop protection. At the same place, I met my then supervisor, the late Dr. Nigel Haig. And Dr. Haig offered me to do a PhD on the biological control of the black vine weevil with entomopathogenic nematodes. Enter nematodes, that's where the nematodes came. So I thought, so I started doing that. So I did this. And then when I finished my PhD, I started writing letters at the time to many people, many professors around the world, to see if they had any postdoctoral positions. I got a positive response at Maynooth University by my then mentor and boss, Professor Emerita now, Anne Brunel, to whom I owe an awful lot as a mentor, as a teacher. I cannot praise enough Anne, I have to say. So I moved to Maynooth and I did 2 postdoctoral contracts with her. One was on the molecular genetics of entomopathogenic nematodes. So I learned a lot about molecular genetics then. And then another postdoc came up on the development of molecular markers for the identification of fruit flies. And when I say fruit flies, most people, like people in biology, think Drosophila. You know, the kitchen fruit flies, when have peelings and things in the kitchen. These are what we call as fruit flies, but the real true fruit flies, the ones I was interested in, are the ones which infect, let's say, peaches and oranges and all this from the Dephrittid family. And then those things, when they're intercepted in the borders through the shipments in the EU, often the inspectors find a leg and a wing. They don't find an insect to identify with morphology. So you need to apply DNA methods to see what's coming through the border. So I came in and I provide them those tools with my work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you come up with a test on a part of this small organism and you can tell what the rest of it is.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what happened then.
And sorry, would the idea be that if something was potentially harmful, that you could identify it before potential food?
Yes, not only in Ireland, but although we have free trade amongst the EU countries now, it still is good to know what the sources of infections are.
Yes.
And traceability is very important in the European Union, everywhere, I would think. And therefore, I did that then. And then I got an assistant lecturer position after that here in Carlow. And then the rest is history.
And you're here since then?
And I came in Ireland for 10 months. 27 years ago.
Okay.
I'm still here.
I suspect that story is replicated many places across Ireland and across the world. Somebody goes for a short period of time and then 10 months turns into 20 years.
Ireland does that to you particularly. Is a beautiful place to live. People complain about Ireland. I mean, every country has its grievances and its deficiencies and weaknesses, but I felt Ireland be so similar to my own country. Although people say, oh, the weather, this and that. I mean, the weather's in my head. Yeah. I have the sunshine in my mind all the time, so I don't mind really. And the people are so similar to Greek people, I felt, and the culture have similar histories, and this lyricism in this country, it resonated with me so much, and the nature of it, and so we decided, myself and my husband, to stay. So we stayed. Yeah.
To our benefit. So thank you. I'd like to go back then to talking about enviroCORE.
Okay.
And explain what enviroCORE is and maybe where it fits into the overall mix of research at SETU. Okay. So first off, let's say I know nothing about enviroCORE. Okay. What is enviroCORE?
enviroCORE, it is a group of scientists working mostly, and I say mostly because we have some chemistry involved, but mostly in bioenvironmental science. And we are heading to providing quality education to the region. And promote the environment, protect the environment, provide solutions, and also promote sustainability. Mm-hmm. The term of it, Enviro for the environment and Core for Center of Research and Enterprise. So therefore, we are really keen in whatever outputs we make in enviroCORE to see tangible applied outputs, if possible. Of course, not all research is commercializable or applicable. And in all fairness, we like application, but you need to have also blue skies in research, basic research, because most of the ideas come of this basic research. And of course, again, if you only focus on basic research, then what goes to society? Not much. So you need to keep a good balance. So in enviroCORE, mostly we're applied, but of course, we always welcome new ideas and all these kind of fundamental projects as well. So enviroCORE, as I said, we are about 50, 60 scientists, starting from intern level to postgrads, to postdoc, and to mature research supervisors, or PIs as we call them. And we have various types of projects ranging from, let's say, using plants to clean up the environment, using a coupling of plants and their bacteria that they host, the endophytes I mentioned earlier on, to clean up soils and water pollution from the environment. We have been involved in producing plants for sustainable energy production, biofuels, but in a more sustainable way, because we know there is a fight, I suppose, between soil for food and soil for biofuels. And of course, food is priority. But if you have a land that is fully contaminated and you cannot grow food plants there, then you can grow plants to clean up this contaminated area, and then you can make biofuels out of that land. And also we try to find processes to develop enzymes to make this transformation of the plants to give us energy more efficient. We look, for example, in using biological components of organisms, that's my work, as bioindicators of the nematodes I'm using, to monitor the environment. We have our mathematician, John Byrne, for example, help us with environmental modeling to make the process better, clean up waters. We're very much involved with sustainable crop production. I work myself and other colleagues like Kieran Germain, my co-director in enviroCORE, in biocontrol. Like the entomopathogenic nematodes I mentioned are typical biocontrol agents. So we try to kill insects and other pests without using toxic pesticides. We look into invasive species. My colleague Carlo Alberto Petit does these things. Adriana looks into natural resources. You met Adriana earlier on.
Yes.
Adriana Kunaneves, and she's looking into using starch and fish waste proteins to make bioplastics. I mean, I try to remember everybody who works in environment.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
so
okay.
Just give you some flavor of what we do. So we use natural resources, Rob, as well. Or even we do waste management, things that nobody wants to deal with, but we take and try to do good things out of that waste, if you like. And in all that, biology is in the center of it. Of course, I mentioned chemistry, but we have our chemist, resident chemist, Dr. John Cleary, who looks mostly how to do water chemistry for water health. Although you can use nematodes again for water health and sediments and so forth. So there's a whole assortment of scientists, mostly biologists, using molecular biology, biochemistry, microbiology, to find and provide solutions to deal with all these environmental challenges around us.
Right. So would I be correct in saying that, right, if humans weren't here, let's say if, right, okay, we can imagine, right, for a moment, but or if we can imagine an earlier time in human history, and you have these biological systems.
Yes.
So I hear this term, circular economies and closed systems.
Yeah.
Would I be correct in saying, in an earlier part of the Earth's history, maybe when humanity wasn't as technically advanced, and I'm using inverted commas there because advanced is a relative term, okay? Would biological systems be naturally closed in that there's this circular nature, that the waste of one thing is the food for something else, and the biological organisms from the very, very small to the very, very large reach an equilibrium, and by and large that just, unless there's an external pressure, it more or less stays as is. Would that be fair? It's probably simplistic.
It's simplistic, but it's good. In ecology, because this is an ecological picture you're drawing there by the microphone here. So in ecology, it's all about production and consumption and balance of resources and competition often. The life-giving star, our sun, will give its energy to the primary producer of energy, which is the plant. The plant will give it to the primary consumer, which is the insect herbivore, and then that will give it to the secondary consumer, who might be the rodent, and we go up the food chain, and then we reach the top consumer, and then the top consumer will die, and then natural processes take over to decompose that. Another ecosystem service, decomposing bacteria. If we didn't have decomposing bacteria in the planet, it would be like a huge graveyard with bodies all over the place. So it's invaluable the service those bacteria do to us. So, as you say, in natural environments, this kind of and in every step of the chain, I mentioned the plant, the rodent. There's transfer of energy from one organism to the other in terms of biomass. Like we need energy. How do we get our energy? From our food and so forth. So we're at the top of the chain. Nobody eats us. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But then again, the bacteria take us over, and that's why, again, I don't want to be touching anybody's religious views, but I'm totally against burning of bodies after death, because I think it's against the ecological balance of the planet. Oh, yeah. Let alone the religious beliefs that people might have. Okay. So in a kind of undisturbed environment, nature takes over this kind of cycling of elements. Because we are matter of stars. Yeah. We are stardust, if you think. We are, this is how life starts, from elements around and from our food that we take, and we keep going until we go back to the earth. We come from the earth, we go back to the earth. So that happens continuously. Now, the trouble is that humans have, as you say, advanced, or inverted commas, how you call it?
Developed.
Developed.
You can see where I'm going with this question.
Yes. We have developed, and we reached a point where our technology, although it provides certain solutions, it has also created a lot of problems. A problem that comes to my mind is the problem of plastic, for example. I was speaking with Adriana earlier on, for example. Yeah. If we keep going the way we go, we'll be drowning in plastic. This material comes, And unless it's biodegradable, it will stay for so many years. And it's everywhere. Here, I'm talking to a microphone that's made of plastic in front of me. It's not only the packages in the supermarkets that you can find solutions for. Like our cars full of plastic, our houses full of plastic. It's just everywhere. So we really urgently need to do something about it. And that is a human product, this plastic. It wasn't there. So we come and we make interventions to the environment. We go to estuaries and we make piers, for example, and we make bridges and we reclaim land from the estuary. I'm talking about that because I did freshwater ecology. So I know from my own teaching. So we do all these interventions onto the planet that nobody's asked for. If you ask the community is not us. Is the seagulls, is the turtles, is the sea urchins, is the mussels. These are also the community. And those guys have also equally right to be there. But we don't tend to think like that. We think everything is there to serve us. So this kind of selfish view of the environment is what has really brought us to the state that we are. And I don't want to go very political because I'm not sure how political I'm allowed to get in this microphone.
You can say what you want.
But capitalism is not good for the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my view. Yes, we need to grow, but how we can grow, up to where? Growth is finite, folks. You can grow to go where? There's no planet B.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were consider how our previous generation of humans were dealing with the planet. Like I remember those years in Greece when I was a little kid, at Christmas we had a pig to eat. Okay? And we were eating everything from this pig.
Yes.
Now the kids, they want a nugget, they want this, they want that, they throw half of the animal away. Why such a waste? So we need to go away from the model of industrialized, conglomerate, massive agriculture. We need to go back to the small farm. I'm not against the farmers. And the poor farmers, actually, I feel very sorry for them. A lot of them, they want to be very sustainable. And they get a big battering from you, from the government, this, that. Okay, and yes, we know what the problems are. And there's great initiatives by the EPA for the smart farming. It's very welcome to see all these initiatives. And I believe the farmers love more nature than anybody because that's their livelihood through nature. But it's the small farm model we have to go back to if we can. And I would advocate and forever to that.
To try and tie some of this conversation together, So we're talking about an ecological balance that has been, let's just say, in broad strokes, upset by humans and impacted by humans. And when you're talking about research work in nematodes or any kind of the agri-environmental sciences, what you're really looking at is a way of putting things back into a sustainable balance.
Exactly.
Would that be fair?
Exactly that,
right,
yes.
Yeah. That's probably simplistic, but
it is,
it's try to understand the value or the direction that you're trying to move
That's
in.
the main theme, and there are details which can be sorted out when there is the will. And to me, the will is with the people. The people have the will. The political will is missing, I think, to make the turn. We had the Kyoto Protocols and the Paris Agreement and this and that and the other, and every time we come back again we say exactly the same thing. We want people to take up these practices, yet they're not made friendly to the people. We have energy crisis at the moment. There are some incentives to make it easier for people. But from all I know is the energy companies getting richer rather than the consumer getting more supported. So they will opt to go and get that electric car, to go and get to install the solar panels, to go and get the wind generator. To me, every house that should be built should become with a battery to store energy, with solar panels installed and a wind generator. That should be the default position. Where is it?
Yeah.
You can do these things. They can become a law, not by you and me. The government can do that. Where are the legislators? There are solutions already out there. And that's why I'm getting so frustrated and so annoyed. I'm watching my language because
no, it's okay. You're allowed.
You don't want to be cursing on the microphone to people. Okay,
I'm a good editor. It's okay.
Okay, great. No. But Rob.
Yeah.
So there are solutions. Technology, in a way, with these plastics have caused problems, but there are solutions. That's why all this research is happening. But I don't see the uptake, and it's not by the people. The people are looking for a direction. We try with this podcast or everything, whatever, to give direction to people. Scientists, but we lack the political will.
Okay,
I feel.
I'm going to hit you with a big question on that, right?
Okay.
And it's maybe an unfair question, but go for it. Why do you think there is a lack of political will to engage with these topics?
I think, And again, I'm not sure if I give the right answer, but in my understanding...
There's no right answer, because it's opinion.
Because there is... the possible... Take energy, for example.
Yeah.
I think the fossil fuel industry is holding very well its fast in the global arena of economy. I'm not sure what agreements and what deals have been made over the table, under the table, behind the walls. I don't know what has happened. And I think that they are opposing this change. So I believe that's where the major obstacle is. The driving economy, those fossil fuel industries, and everybody dances along their tune. Again, I believe, I don't want to talk about Ireland specifically, because I believe Ireland also works with other countries and the EU also directs and so forth. But I don't know what happens at the EU headquarters and how, again, those headquarters are in talks with this, again, with those kinds of industries. And again, there's so many other factors that we can't control for and we can't know, and many other industries revolving around that. The petroleum industry, we can talk about plastics and all that. There's a massive amount of vested interests there in terms of money and funds and capital. I think that's what it's all about. It's all about money that is being, driving the agenda rather than the good of the people and of the environment. It's welcome to see the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but I don't see, again, any push to... I can see it at local level. I can see it in our college here. I can see it in other smaller groups, in community groups. Oh, that's great. But we need, bottom-down approach. Because these people have the power. No, but top down. Top down. Beg your pardon. Top down, because these people have the political power to, again, legislate and do it. If the approach becomes bottom up easily and smoothly, is good. But if we reach the point that it becomes a revolution, then that's not a good thing for no one. In few years, we will see the problems with the refugees. Climate refugees been enhanced. What we see now, it's a walk in the park compared to what's coming. Many people don't believe what I'm saying. That's another problem. And sometimes even the politicians don't believe that. So we're here telling them, wake up, do something about it. It's coming. It's here, climate change. And they thought, oh, no, the Earth does all this cycle. But we have the data. Oh, no, but the Earth does the cycles and there's nothing we can do, la, la, la. And it's hopeless in that way, us to see it happening. But there's nothing else we can do but keep advocating, keep telling our truth to people. And
on that hopeful note, no, but you're right. No, you're.
What does he do?
No,
look, Rob,
I understand.
I have children.
Yes, of course.
I want to die with my conscience clean, that I did whatever I could, and that's why I'm daring to bring it up here. Because sometimes in the scientific circles, if you talk about politics, they look at you. Oh, God forbid you talk about politics, but it is about politics after all.
Yeah, isn't it a funny thing that throughout these podcasts, and as I speak to researchers from across all disciplines, the refrain that or the theme that keeps coming up is this idea that everyone isn't in their own discrete lane. Everything is linked and everything is connected in some way, whatever that might be. Some obviously have more direct connections than others, but I suppose it does come back to policy for a lot of things. I know people are bored or don't want to hear about policy, but it does impact on things.
I give a good lecture on Aristotle in my first years.
Okay, go for it.
Aristotle wasn't only the father of science and the father of biology, he wrote a lot about politics.
Yes.
And Aristotle had two ways of distinguishing people. He said there are those people who are politically aware and active, and there are those other people who are private. That means they don't mix in political and common causes. Those private people in Greek are called idiotes. The word idiot came from that.
Okay.
That gets to show you that if you don't get involved in politics, You become like an idiot because other people will decide your fate. And involved in politics doesn't mean to be militant or to to run for a prime minister or anything. It's to be aware. It's to be a conscious voter. It's to show up and vote. It's to, when you need to march, you will march. If you need to have this discussion, you will have it. If you need to have a grassroots going around your estate, you will do it. This is what politically aware means.
Aristotle, I think it's amazing that speaking to somebody who's Greek and you've brought up Aristotle.
Aristotle was a Macedonian like myself. I love Aristotle. Is one. And actually, I created a cultural association in Ireland, the first Macedonian cultural association in Ireland, and we call it Aristotle in honor of the man himself.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Aristotle was taught by Plato,
yes.
who was taught by Socrates.
Yes.
And Aristotle taught Alexander the Great. And if you see the succession and what was achieved, is not a random event.
Yeah. Aristotle also wrote a lot about drama.
Absolutely.
And you can see, which is storytelling.
Yes.
And you can see so much of what we're talking about, even in terms of science communication. It's about telling a story.
Absolutely. Aristotle got an awful lot of things wrong.
Yes.
Because he didn't have the technology we have now. He only had his mind. But he got some things bang on correctly, and he developed methodology. And he was the first one in his time when there was no microscope, no electronic equipment, no analytical, nothing. And he was so methodical. And so that's why. And he was the authority up to many years, and then the other philosophers came up and completely rebuked him and ridiculed him until he was proven correct again back in the 20th century. Even Darwin accepted him as a great teacher. And again, it wasn't in vain that MIT recently voted Aristotle as the most influential person on the planet.
Wow.
Because, Aristotle was what shaped science in the West.
Yes.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
no,
I'm deviating all my Greek upbringing comes onto this discussion.
I think it's brilliant. Why not? Why not Aristotle?
Well,
He's a giant figure.
But it's irrelevant. We talk about science here.
Yeah,
yes,
of course.
Absolutely, yes.
I want to hit you with one last question, which is the same question that I ask everyone who's appeared on this podcast. Imagine somebody was listening to this who was thinking about getting into research. They could be in any aspect of their career. They might be undergraduate students. They might be 50 years of age, doesn't matter. There could be an undergraduate student who is 50 years of age.
Yeah.
If somebody was thinking about getting into research, what advice would you have? Okay.
I will start from first the researcher who's at the college, or rather a staff member maybe who wants to do research and they haven't maybe got a direction. I would say that should really get involved in supervising final year research projects. It's a great way to get into small-scale research, to do snippets of short projects of like 10 weeks. If they have an idea, they can get a graduate, you can get a final year undergrad and you can test their idea and keep going like that. Make collaborations, go to conferences, network and expand as much as possible. And then start applying for small funding. That's how I started myself and see how you can get going. It wasn't a bed of roses for me to reach where I have. I worked very, very hard to get where I am. Okay. Now, if you are an undergrad and you want to go to research, the first thing I would say is to be okay if you haven't sussed it out yet. Undergrads are very young people, usually. And they want to know everything immediately. That doesn't happen, It's okay not to have a plan. It's okay if you want to go from A to B and you go via XW to B. And that's even life sometimes, let alone research, which is very uncertain kind of endeavor. So that's the first thing. Second thing, prepare to work hard for two reasons. Working hard means you learn knowledge. So when you go to do research, you're not just an empty head there, be given admission to a program which you will fail if you don't have the technical background, but you have some gravitas. You bring your knowledge with you. So learn, work hard. Secondly, working hard gives you good marks. Good marks will allow you to stand up so that when you go to apply for research projects, you will be picked. So that's the second thing. Third thing, find out in your own university or in other universities what certain professors are doing. You can find this out from looking at their websites, their profiles, and so there's LinkedIn now. There's tons of information about academics. There's personal web pages, you name it. Find out what they do. If something catches your interest, because that's why it says people don't have a plan and they kind of get desperate. Oh, what do I do? how you go about this is to do something that you like. That's how I started. As I said, I started from an undergrad and I enjoyed creepy crawlies. So what do now? I do crop protection. So I went to that. In crop protection, another opportunity opened up. So I went to that. So it's step-by-step process. Nothing will be worked out immediately. So find to do something that you like and write to this professor. Introduce yourself. Send your CV. If you come up with a nice kind of standing out, sometimes you may even have an idea. Call it out. If you come out nicely and politely, this professor might come back to you. You might initiate a discussion. Then there's the IRC, Irish Research Council opportunities, for example, for undergrads, for research proposals, for masters and for PhD projects running every autumn. That's a nice avenue. Some universities have president's fellowships like we have. Wait, talk to your lecturers. Go mainly do your research to see what's out there and look for opportunities. And the opportunity is there, but you've got to be at the top of your game. That's to say, work hard. Only hard work will give that to you. I often have students who are very clever and they think their cleverness will fly them through. No, it's work hard. Yeah. You see the Tiger Woods and whoever, the rich were the rich because they were just competent to wave a stick. They work so hard, these people, and all the or Beethoven. Beethoven was a genius not because he was a genius, but he worked hard. It wasn't just pure talent. Talent is something good that we all have, or some people have, but you have to put the hours, and that's what I would say to students: put the time, because nothing comes without the hard work.
That's a wonderful note to finish on. I think it's.
I would like to also mention something that I forgot, and. I would like to highlight a project that we just finished in EnviroCORE called the Renew to Farm project.
Oh yeah, okay, go for it.
Yes, because we hope to continue that. We just applied for continuation of this project with this other project called the Renew to Cycle. The Renew to Farm project was an Interreg part-funded project. Interreg is a program between countries in a certain region of Europe. So this is part of the northwest of Europe. 10 partners were involved from Germany, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, France, and Ireland. And we aim to replace fertilizers, which are minerals, in farming. Where do the nematodes come into that? I'll tell you in a minute so you can link it up. Really what happens with mineral fertilizers is that in order to provide synthetic mineral nitrogen to the farms, a lot of fossil fuel is spent to make it. There's not sustainable process whatsoever, this one. Phosphate is dug and mined in places like Morocco, Brazil, South Africa. Imagine how much energy is also spent for that and how many mountains are upset. Remember the interventions we're talking about? Not at all sustainable. So what we do, we go and find waste, organic waste, municipal waste, farm waste, canteen waste, all the organic waste that's produced by us, and it's a waste and we don't know what to do with it, and we take the nutrients out of those, like the phosphorus and the potassium and the nitrogen. Our partners in Renew to Farm have factories in Luxembourg to even generate the energy from that waste to run the factory. You wouldn't believe, like, circular system that is so elegant, although very stinky because but very elegant. And my dream is to have in Ireland a plant like that. I don't know if we can manage to do that, but I'd love to have that in Ireland, because we have all these wastes, so we can deal with that and we can hit all the boxes. We can make new jobs, we can manage the waste, and we can make nutrients that can be supplied in our farms without having to go and import and pay all this expensive money and we spend all this fossil fuel to make it. So we finished the project. Nematodes were used as indicators of applying these new fertilizers, if the fertilizers are good for the environment or not, and we had good results. Yeah. So that was our part. And also my colleagues used bacteria to do that. So bacteria nematodes were used here to, that was the SETU part in the project. In Carlow we did that, and we finished this project now, and we have applied for second round of funding to do what is called living labs. We have a partner in the UL, Dr. Kim Schmallenberger, who brought this idea. Excuse me. And Akim proposed the Living Labs concept, in that now, if we get this new funding, we will go out to real commercial farms now, and we will try to demonstrate that, because all the trials we had so far were in controlled trials in Chagas. Yes. Now we're going to go into real farms and see if the system is working. So fingers crossed, and everything else, we'll get the funding and we'll keep going with the good work. Brilliant. So there, a bit of a sample of work.
Thomae Kakouli-Duarte, if somebody wanted to find out more about you, perhaps an undergrad student who wants to learn more about your work, where should they go? What's the best place to learn about you?
They can email me at thomae.kakouli@setu.ie. they can Google my name. The web pages will come up. I have my email there. My office is always open to students. Always, there's professors having like a visiting policy. I'm not like that. A student is a priority to me. So they can come and see me. My office is on top of the reception, C329, within C327 at the Science Building, NOR Building on the Carlow campus. So if they want to, ideally email would be better because we can organize a demo, but if they knock my door, I can always see them.
Wonderful. Thomae, thank you so much for your time today. It's been genuinely eye-opening. Your enthusiasm and your curiosity is just because you coughed there, it's positively infectious.
It's just talking too much. I need some water.
No problem.
Rob, thank you so much as well. You do a great service to all of us with this podcast and to science and to our society in general. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 9plus. Follow us on Twitter at 9plus podcast. That's digit 9PLUS podcast. You can find me on Twitter at RobO'Connor_IRL, or you'll see my profile on the setu.ie website. Thank you.